We talk about marketing today. Every artist's worst dream. Honestly, in this video, I'm gonna try my best to simplify this whole process for you guys until it's digestible for you, until you can psychologically wrap your head around it in a world full of distractions. Because in this day and age, attention is such a commodity because it's lost so easily. And honestly, the more you simplify this process for yourself, the easier it is going to be on your mind. Because this should not take such a huge part of your mind that it basically disables you from making the right moves in your artistic career. Everyone's artistic career is kind of like a house, you know what I mean? Everyone cleans up the kitchen, right? Which is, in other words, like attending to your art, whether it's making your music, whatever it is. You attend to the kitchen, go vacuum the living room, the house looks beautiful, but the house still smells. Where's the smell coming from? But you don't want to open up the basement door, do you? You're going down to the basement, some nastiness on the floor, spider webs, a whole colony of bugs and different types of four-headed animals. So you just close the door back up. The stank is coming from your marketing, right? But it's so overwhelming that a lot of artists kind of give up attending to it. And then they end up on the realm of just giving up art as a profession, right? Which is so highly pursuable if you just wrap your head around these simple steps. Now, I'm not no marketing expert, but I have 10 plus years of experience, and I'm more concerned with how easily digestible this process is for you guys, because the ease is what's going to get you through this and for you to basically kickstart this journey in a way where you can last long pursuing it. So let's break this down. This is how I would break it down for you guys just to simplify it. The first stage you want to attend to when it comes to marketing is the research phase. Start doing research. Now, what are you going to focus your research on? I would say research and decide what camera and what editing software you're going to choose for shooting your content. I would research on just different platforms' is aura. Like, what's TikTok's aura? What's YouTube's aura? What's the vibes? You don't want to be like a not reading the room kind of guy. You want to know what the vibes are. You want to research your niche, which basically means you want to understand what artists do you sound like, what genre do you fit in, and what do people do that works in your caliber. You know what I mean? And when I say your caliber, it means like maybe you don't want to do the types of things that Justin Bieber does to stay relevant, and do things that maybe a local artist that's doing numbers, what is he doing to get numbers? What types of contents is he creating? You know what I mean? And then after you do all your research based on what you have and what kind of budget you want to put into your camera or editing software or whatever, may I mention that you need to get really good at editing. You know what I mean? Not really good, just good enough at editing. Using CapCut, Premiere, just get good enough at that shit. You know what I mean? Get good enough at it. And then after you've done your research, what you want to come up with is a list of the types of contents you want to create. You know what I mean? A list of the types of contents you want to create. Now, this list should include contents that you like to experiment with and contents that you've seen that have worked, right? And contents that basically are in line with what you have at your access. If all you have is a phone, there's a lot of things you could do with a phone. I'm shooting this YouTube video on a phone right now. You know, I have access to cameras and whatnot, but for me to be consistently making videos and efficiently making videos, I have to do a lot of contents on my phone, and I do a lot of my contents on my phone, and they look great. I always get compliments of, damn, this looks great, right? So create that list. Like, I want to do live performances in the street. I want to do freestyles, covers. I want to do aesthetic videos, photo shoots, whatever it is. And then just try fitting them in within the platforms that they fit the aura of, right? So that's your research phase. That's for a whole while that you need. Just research. What types of contents do you want to make, right? What do you want to experiment with? What you're gravitating towards? Come up with a list of like 10 types of contents, you know? And these are things that you eventually have to be consistent with. Now, moving on to phase 2, we get into a trial error phase where you start experimenting with these, right? You start creating these contents, you start posting them, you start seeing the feedback on these contents, and you start seeing how efficient the process of making these contents are, right? You could start rating these factors that I just mentioned. How much do you like making this content? How much positive feedback are you getting on these contents? How efficient is it for you to make these contents? You know? And lastly, how flexible are these contents? For example, if you have a song release, if you have a big music video release, if you have a big show, can you or if you have like things going on in your life, can you cater these contents towards these situations? How flexible are these contents? Can you do a lot of things with them, right? Once you hit a pretty high score on these 4 aspects, then you start being like, okay, out of the list of 12 contents that I came up with at first, I'm gonna choose these 4 or 5 types of content that I'm gonna consistently create and feed the world with, right? Because a big problem that artists face is consistency. How do I keep coming up with ideas to post? Well, one time. You have to come up with these ideas one time, and then you're set, because you cater the type of content it is, and within that type you can just be creative as much as you want within a weekly basis, right? So you come down to your list, and now we're at phase 3, and this could take a long time, man. But just know you're not in it for it. Just be in love with your craft so much that you accept that these types of things could take a long time. Just accept it. If you're not in love with your craft, you're gonna give any reason for yourself to be like, well, this is not for me. No, man. If you in love with your craft, except that coming up with the right formula for you could take a long time. And this is assuming that you're an independent artist, because if you're a signed artist, a lot of times they come up with these things for you. Which my advice to you is, I would come up with these things, these formulas, these strategies before you get signed. So you have negotiation power. Once someone signs you, they sign you because of everything you bring to the table. And they want you to bring whatever you are to the table. They don't have to create the table for you and set it up for you. Do you understand what I'm saying? I have a feeling that you understand what I'm saying, which is what I like. Now let's get to the final phase. Build a system. Build a system from your contents. Schedule when you're going to shoot your content, how often you're going to shoot your content. Schedule when you're going to post your content. And once you have those schedules set up reminders, notifications from beforehand, because we live in a distracting world with a lot of stimuli around us. A lot of things are here to distract us. So if you don't have the proper schedule, reminders, notifications set up to keep you on track, there's a high chance you might get distracted. And to be honest with you, we're having a distraction epidemic. A lot more people are coming out saying, oh, I'm ADHD, I'm ADD, this and that, and this. You know what I mean? We have this epidemic because of the way our world works right now, because of the way social media works right now, because of how easily accessible things are. Because of all these stimuli around us, we are so distractible. So we have to set up a system where we are not as distractible. We can hone in. You know what I mean? Set up these cues. When you get that notification, that's a cue. That's a reminder to put you on track. So when you build this system, you basically want to set yourself up for success in a world that could throw anything your way. Now, I have a list of things I want to remind you of throughout this process, because this is something you have to stay consistent with. You know what I mean? I want you to keep these pointers in mind before you get discouraged. You know what I mean? Or when you feel discouraged in terms of like doing what you do. You know, because that happens. You're like, okay, I came up with the perfect list of whatever, you know what I mean? I'm posting consistently, I'm pushing ads on them, which is something you have to do. If I didn't mention, you know what I mean? You have to push ads, consistently push ads, consistently have the algorithm study how your content is working, improving your outreach, you know what I mean? Which is the things you do for your ads, which is the things the ads do for you, I mean. Now, and then for a while you don't see results, right? Which could happen, you know what I mean? Hopefully, you after taking all these steps, you can see success in a short amount of time, right? But that's not how things always go. So these are things you want to keep in mind when you get discouraged. The first thing is, human psychology is very unpredictable. So never feel like you're not doing the right thing. You know what I mean? Once you find the formula that works for you, you might not be doing the right thing, but don't rule out what you're doing because of some human reaction to your work. You know what I mean? Because human psychology is so unpredictable. You're dealing with billions of people psychology, you know what I mean? And how people consume things. You can't have rules that are so stable about how you should make your content and what kind of like content you want to like give to the world. You know what I mean? Because human psychology is so unpredictable that you never know who out there is going to resonate with what you are providing to the world. So I would say consistently and actual kind of passion about what you're creating is a lot more important than the right move, because the right move might not be as right as you think it is. I hope my message is getting transferred properly. Nothing's completely right in the world of psychology. There's chances of things being right. You're playing chances. You want to play the chances in your favor, but you're still playing with chances. Let me check really quickly if this is recording, because this is a very crucial part of the video. Yes, it is. All right. Chances are what you're playing with. And it's pretty much the same mentality that, for example, when people invest in stocks, right? They invest in stocks, the market goes down, people get scared, they sell their stocks, right? And they lose their money. They're like, okay, I take the loss. But people that are in it for a long run, they're like, these types of ups and downs, they don't really phase them, because regardless, the trajectory is pretty upwards. You know what I mean? And these types of things, like, they depend a lot on human input, for lack of better words. You know what I mean? And human input is not as predictable as you think it is. And realistically, eventually, a small percentage of your input is gonna create most of your success. You know what I mean? So you keep pushing and pushing and pushing and pushing. You're like, oh, nothing's happening. Nothing is giving me the success that I need, right? What are these numbers, right? You feel discouraged, but you don't understand that it could be like 0.1, 0.00001% of the contents or whatever you're creating that give you like 90% of your success, blow you out of proportion. You know what I mean? When are you gonna come to that point? You never know. Luck is a factor, but you have to put yourself in a position of luck. You know, we're never denying the importance of luck, because luck does a lot of things, but you want to be present for luck. The more you're present for luck, then you can claim that you're lucky. You know, such a low chance for someone who doesn't present themselves for luck, for them to present themselves one or two times and they get lucky. It happens, but it's not as likely. For you who show up every day, for you who shows up every week or whatever, you have consistent, frequent input, luck will come your way a lot more likely than someone who shows up whenever they like. You know what I mean, right? Risk is also a factor. You know what I mean? Risk is also a factor. You got to take risks. Sometimes you lose in this game. Sometimes you lose in this. Sometimes you got to change your methodology. You know what I mean? Sometimes you got to improve your approach to things, approach to, I don't know, how you edit, the types of things you say. I'm improving the way that I speak. So I don't say too many ums or likes or over time, because I realize it gets boring. The video gets boring if I just talk as if like I'm pondering too much. I gotta be on point when I speak to you guys. So I'm a constant improvement. I'm a constant human evolution, right? And just because of that, the upward trajectory is inevitable. Even if luck doesn't come your way, the upward trajectory is inevitable. That's why it's important to stick to your guns. Stick to what you have took so long to build. Stick to it. Stick to your guns. In this game, one of the most important things I learned is that, and I heard it in a podcast, in an Inside Out podcast. Shout out Inside Out podcast. Go check that thing out. It's from my dear friend. You know what I mean? She runs the podcast. One of the biggest gems I heard in that podcast was, if you don't know who you are, the world will tell you who you are. So truly, the biggest thing I should tell you in this whole video is, the biggest gem that I could give you is, know who you are. If you know who you are, the world's gonna keep telling you who you are, and it's not gonna affect you because you know deep down who you are. I want to curse so bad. You know damn well who you are, but YouTube's kind of weird about cursing or whatever, so I'm gonna keep it PG for you guys. Yeah, when you know who you are, just keep being who you are. Keep being who you are. Keep being who you are. Lay down who you are. It's like a building. You lay down bricks of you. You keep laying down bricks of you. And no matter how much they tell you who you are, you're too much you that they can't break you anymore. They can't phase you. You understand what I'm saying? They can't phase you. They can't shake you because you laid down this foundation of you over and over and over and over again. That's how you are. I'm passionate about that, and once you keep being who you are and keep building on who you are and keep building this beautiful mansion of you-ness, then you're unbreakable and your trajectory is upward, and one day you will get lucky. One day you're gonna get lucky, but you're gonna get lucky for who you are. To be honest, if you get lucky for who you are not, you're in for big trouble. You're in for big trouble, to be honest. If I hope I had answers for that. I don't, because I haven't had a big break yet, per se. I haven't had my big break, but so I wish I had an advice for someone who actually had a big break before they knew who they were, and it affected them in negative ways, right? Because I see a lot of it happening. I'm thankful it didn't happen to me because I didn't have my big break. I learned who I am through everything I went through. I learned who I am. And once I do have my big break, it's gonna make me question who I am even more. But I've been me for so long. I've been giving you guys me for so long, consistently, that I'm confident in standing my ground, sticking to my guns when my perception of myself becomes challenged. I'm gonna leave it at that. I hope you guys can take something away from what I just shared with you guys. God bless you. I love you.